Welcome to All Can, No Can't, the podcast where we toss out excuses, face our fears, and reclaim control. I'm Jeff Luther, your guide to mastering the chaos and turning obstacles into opportunities. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating the ups and the downs of building a successful business or someone ready to rewrite the rules of your life, this is your space to grow, to push boundaries, and to embrace doing the hard shit that leads to greatness. Together, we'll explore stories of resilience, strategies for overcoming, and the mindset shifts that let you build a life on your terms. I use my experience with a life-altering diagnosis to help you find the can in every can't. So buckle up, because it's time to stop living in can't and start thriving in all can. You choose. All right, welcome back to the All Can, No Can't podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Luther, and this is where we turn can't into can, where our obstacles become opportunities. And we've got another great show this week. We've got a special guest, John Hankins, with us. John is actually a licensed social worker. He's a certified financial therapist, and I'm so interested to have this discussion. He's also a certified financial social worker. His diverse career includes a decade of work in community health, followed by 35 years in a variety of positions in IT, which is so fascinating. Internet, cloud service, he's done a lot of that throughout his life. He exited from the conventional full-time employment 6 years ago at the spry young age of 68. So 3 years later, he discovered that the developing field of financial therapy, and after some exploration, he decided to reinvent himself as a financial therapist. So that's the overlaying topic, and then John's going to share some other stuff with us too. That's going to be a ton of fun. John, thank you. Thanks for carving out some time. Two very interesting things that we'll talk about. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm excited.
Jeff, thank you. I think we'll have a great conversation. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated on the topic of the financial therapist. We'll get into that more, but just real quick, if you could either do like your elevator pitch or give me the definition of a financial therapist.
Sure. A financial therapist is I'll tell you what it's not, is someone who's doing just financial planning. Okay. So a financial therapist is someone who is really focused on the emotional aspects of money and your relationship with your money, and seeking ways for you to turn that into a positive force in your life.
Okay. Um, yeah, so that resonates with me. One of the things that I learned early on from Harv Eker. Are you familiar with Harv Eker?
No.
Author, let's see, The Millionaire Mindset was the book that he wrote. And in
Okay.
that book, he talks about your financial blueprint and how that gets designed and developed. I bet that's something similar. We'll get into that.
Well, yeah, actually, the financial therapy would say that there is so much underneath developing that blueprint, so much history, so much emotion, that if you're not really figuring that out, you can wind up with a blueprint that's pretty dysfunctional. And I'm sure we all
Yeah.
know people that have gone down that road.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. Um, okay. All right. 71. What made you decide to totally reinvent yourself at 71? I mean, that takes effort, takes focus, takes uh doing, and a lot of times at 71 people aren't interested. So what made you decide to reinvent yourself?
Well, I think I'm kind of by nature a very curious and fairly high energy guy. And so when I retired, um, I really thought and continue to think that having some purpose, some mission in your life is really important. And while I wasn't obsessed by that or feeling there was some great lack, I was on the lookout, right? I wanted something I could really latch on to. And I had been doing a lot of work with nonprofits from the business side, helping them with their business planning, accounting, all those sorts of things. And what I saw in that process was that the people I was working with were really struggling emotionally with, they had to be business people, right? They were,
Yeah.
had a passion for their nonprofit project, and now it's like, hey, you got to run this business. And I told my friends when they asked, what are you doing? I said, oh, I really enjoy it. I'm working with these nonprofits, but I'm more of a therapist than anything else for these people. And then I discovered, and that was before I knew about financial therapy. And one day opened up the Sunday New York Times, and there was an article, Financial Therapy Association. The next day I was signing up. I was a member of the Financial Therapy Association, and I kind of took it from there. It took me about 6 months to get to the point of looking at my really kind of diverse background and a lot of the volunteer work I did and the social work degree I had earned, graduated in 1981, that I could put all of that together and qualify to start working on a certification in financial therapy and to go back and get licensed as a social worker in Colorado. Both of those activities required that I pass exams, take some courses, put together some statements. I mean, it was not like signing up. You're going to get your divinity degree so you can marry your friends. This was it took me about 6 months to put all of that together. And a lot of hard work on my part, but to me, it just completely resonated with, I wanted to work with people. I loved the whole idea of financial stuff. I'd done my own retirement planning. I'd started that 20 years before I retired. So all of this completely coalesced for me. And I didn't see any barrier around my age. In fact, I saw that as a positive, that I was
Wisdom.
bringing wisdom, experience, all those pieces together. And honestly, another piece was that I was doing it purely for the joy of doing it. I like the money that I make, I'll tell you that, but I wasn't
Yeah.
doing it to make money. I'm not tied to this as an income producing activity.
So, well, that kind of follows your path. And so early on in your professional life, or however you want to phrase that, you started out your career as a social worker, and you were kind of giving to others, so to speak. And then you went in a total opposite direction. You got into information resources or information technology, and then went back to social work, or uh, giving back piece of that again. So does the financial therapist tie into that? Was part of it that you wanted
Oh,
to help other people?
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, um, in my 20s, my identity was, I am here on this planet to serve others in some way. And social work was the
Mhm.
direction I went with. I worked with really disadvantaged people in inner city Philadelphia. Uh, then I got on kind of an academic track. I got a scholarship into a PhD program. And the more I got into that, the more I was working on research. And this was when computers were really emerging. Desktop computing was just starting. And there's part of me that's kind of an engineer, and I got sucked into that. And yeah, I went off in that direction because I liked it and I could make a lot of money at it. Those were, quite honestly, the two things. But I found myself um, in my early 60s just kind of like, what am I doing? This is, I have spent most of my life taking rather than giving.
And that's
And
really how you felt, because
yeah,
I mean, because you were earning money doing something that you liked, you
well,
consider that
because
taking?
it didn't have the right level of meaning for me. There wasn't enough contribution on my part. And so I had an interesting thing that happened, was that I was thinking very carefully about this, and I had a friend who had progressive kidney disease, and he was going to need a kidney transplant. And he got to the point where, yeah, he's, this is going to happen. And I decided that being a kidney donor would be a way to kind of pay the world back in a way that and for me, it was very important that I wanted this to be a very private act. I didn't want there to be any part of this that was tied to the world's perception of me. Oh, here's the great guy that donated a kidney to his friend. I didn't want people to see me in some different way. And so I went into this program where they did this whole evaluation, and it turned out that his sister had volunteered as a donor. She was a better match. But I had the opportunity then to join a altruistic donation program where there's at that time, there was 6 hospitals in the country that were in this program where you just said, hey, I want to donate my kidney to somebody that's a match. They couldn't live down the street from me. They couldn't live on the other side of the country. I don't know who they are. That's not, I just want to do this. So I was in that program, and there was more evaluation, and the program evaluation culminated in a whole day of interviews and tests and different things. And one of the things was an interview with a social worker, kind of like asking the question, why are you here?
Yeah.
This is not everybody does this. And I completely broke down. I mean, I was just sobbing about all of the pent up, whatever that was
guilt is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I guess you could put it, honestly, it was just an incredibly intense feeling. Okay. It was just incredibly emotional.
But I interrupted you. Go on with the story.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
just one of the more emotional moments of my life, quite honestly, just no doubt.
Sure.
So I go through this, and they say, okay, our team's going to meet. This was on a Thursday. Our team's going to meet tomorrow, and we're going to, go through and we'll let you know on Monday if you're accepted into the program. Because there could be just health things or
sure,
the way your kidney's shaped or stuff like that. So, okay, thank you very much. So I go home, and now I'm in my head. I've just gone through this incredibly intense emotional experience, and I've got this, I want to do this thing, and this is really, really important. And I'm going back and forth. Well, okay, if I am going to do this, boy, what's this really going to be like? What's it going to feel like going into okay, come on down to the hospital tomorrow. We're going to take out your kidney. Or we're very sorry, but you don't qualify. So I'm on this kind of teeter-totter. And so Monday morning rolls around, and that's, I know I'm going to get this call on Monday morning. And I get up Monday morning, and I look at my phone, and there's a message on my phone. First thing Monday morning. And it's from the surgeon who would be taking out my kidney that I had met the previous week. And the first thing is, I'm like, alarm bells are going off. Like, this is not the person that I would expect would be calling me. I would expect the program administrator, who happened to be a nurse, that she's the person I'm going, working with on this. And she's there, hey, Mr. Hankins, hey, when we did that CT scan last week of your kidney, it turns out that you may have a potentially serious form of lymphoma. And, you need to go. She said, I've already talked to your primary care physician. And I'm like, wait a minute. First thing Monday morning, you're calling my primary care physician. What the hell's going on here? She says, you need to call her right away. She's going to take over. Thank you. Good luck. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? So I'm like, from this, am I doing this
Were
thing?
you angry?
No, I wasn't angry.
I was just scared.
I was just shocked and scared.
Yeah.
I was just blown. I was in such an intense emotional frame of mind already. And this was so completely unexpected.
Yeah.
Just totally out of the blue. So I called my primary care doc, and she's like, well, this could be, we don't, let's not panic, But she said, but I've already can get an appointment with an oncologist for you tomorrow. So the whole thing was just crazy. It turned out I'm okay. I'm totally healthy.
Well, you survived, clearly.
Yeah, I survived. I have lymphoma. I'm going to have lymphoma the rest of my life, but I am okay. But what it left me with was what do I do now? Now I've opened up
Yeah,
this. I've
I
opened
want to
these
pause
gates.
for a second here. So it's almost like the observation I have is it's almost like, okay, well, now I'm letting the world get its pound of flesh because I haven't contributed as much as I feel like I should have. Or this is the world's retribution on for John Hankins for not contributing as much as I feel like I should have. So it sounds like, putting words in your mouth or emotion in your mind, like there's some guilt, but then you're going to make it right. And then that opportunity's taken from you.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And so at that point, I just said, okay, I'm going to go find something. I'm going to attach myself somewhere, somehow in this world to something where I'm doing something that is like, no doubt, I'm helping people that need help. And it
Okay.
kind of popped up in front of me. Where I live in Colorado, there is a program that's been around for 30 years that supports people living with HIV and AIDS. And I had a very close friend who died during the AIDS crisis, and I'd always, again, felt like I should have been doing something there. And so I contacted that organization. I became a volunteer. I joined their board. I was their treasurer for 6 years. I'm still on their finance committee. I've been working with them for over 10 years. I do food deliveries. It's an organization that I love. But that just opened the doors for me to other connections, and it gave me nonprofit kind of financial management experience, which was good, and moved me into working with other nonprofits. I hooked up with another organization that does kind of project-based work with other nonprofits. So that's where I got into these, working with several different nonprofits and seeing all of this emotion. And that led me into financial therapy. So I see it as there is a connecting the dots, a direct line from I wanted to donate this kidney to now I'm a financial therapist. I can
Yeah.
see every
Yeah.
step of the way that I wanted to move forward. I was open to all possibilities, and so yeah, when things came along that seemed like a fit for who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, I jumped on them. And now I have a small and growing financial therapy practice. I'm on the board of the Financial Therapy Association. I'm an affiliate member of the Financial Planning Association. I read a lot of research around behavioral economics and financial behavior, and so I'm in a whole new thing that brings me tremendous joy and satisfaction.
That's awesome. And where you kind of glossed over this whole lymphoma thing. Oh, well, I had it, I'm okay, and I'm gonna have it forever, and that's it. But to get information like that, can you go back? Do you recall how you felt when hey, not only can you not give us a kidney, but there's this. Are you feeling stuck? Overwhelmed? It's like you're fighting against something that you can't even see or name. I've been there, literally. I survived sudden cardiac death, and I rebuilt everything. I've mastered the art of controlling the chaos. Now I coach a small group of high performers that are willing to do the work to do the same thing. No fluff, no excuses, we just get results. If you're ready to take back control, apply now at jeffluther.com. This is all can, no can. Other issue we kind of need to talk about.
Oh, I felt crushed. I was crushed. I mean, it was, consider that I knew I was already going to feel, if they came back and said, thank you very much, but your kidney just isn't going to work. I
Yeah.
knew that I would feel I would feel deep disappointment at that. So this was like, 10x.
Yeah.
It was way more. It was kind of like, that I suddenly the possibility that I was going to be really sick,
Yeah.
that I was going to be the person that needed help.
Right.
That was the part.
Yeah.
I immediately went from I wanted to be the helper to I was the one that needed help. And yeah, that was really tough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think that that shaped any of your behavior now or any of your beliefs maybe financially from the time you got that news?
Um, well, that's a really tough question because I have you have to put that in the context of since I got that news, I've been growing older and I've had a lot more experience with other people growing older, friends with Alzheimer's, parents with Alzheimer's, different pieces. So it becomes just part of that context where I would just say that it to me just shapes it in the sense that we're here today and we are in the present moment, and that's kind of really all we've got.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so
But sometimes that draws a parallel with money. Oh, well, I might
uh,
not be here tomorrow. I may as well buy this
well,
thing.
that's that's an interesting point. No, it has not in any in the only way that it has impacted that is in looking at people that are making decisions um, and have health problems, that have real things they're dealing with. It has not led me down any road of just like, oh, the heck with it. If you want to spend all your
Yeah.
money on a trip around the world, and you're gonna do that, and then you're not gonna have, you're not gonna know how you're gonna buy groceries when you get back. Cool, go do it. No, it hasn't taken me and I've kept on the sort of disciplined. Hey, we got to plan for the future here, and there's good ways that we can do it.
Yeah. Um, so what's been the hardest part of this reinvention process? What would you say was the hardest thing for you to overcome?
Um, the hardest thing to overcome there's two. Okay, can I get two?
Yeah, yeah,
One,
absolutely.
one is that I'm the old guy, and
Oh,
there has been some times when I have really felt some age discrimination of like there's a bunch of people that are 30 years younger than me, excuse me, sitting at a table and they're all talking and I'm really not part of the conversation. I've had that happen a few times, and that's painful. The other
give me some
piece,
better context around that.
okay,
And just
well,
it's
with all due respect to my my colleagues, so we have an annual conference every year,
okay.
and so that has happened to me a few times at those
Okay,
conferences.
I see. Because you own your own business now, and so I
Yeah,
was like, well, how does that happen? And why do you give a shit? But
yeah,
and now I get it. Okay,
yeah. Um,
so at conferences with your peers, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, and in a sense, they're my peers in one sense, and not my peers in another sense. Um, then the other piece that struck me after I got into this, and I was pretty bold, like yeah, I can do that. I can be a therapist again. I was a social worker back in my 20s. I can be a therapist again. In my 70s. It's only what 50 years in between,
Yeah,
and so
like
I
riding a bike.
yeah, I'm sitting down just like you and I do all this online, and here's somebody on the other end there, and they've got a real problem, and they think I'm going to help them. Their expectation is, and my responsibility is to be able to help them. And pretty early into it, I hadn't anticipated the feeling that responsibility. And I don't say that in a negative way. It's just like, wow, yeah, this is really, people are bringing me really serious stuff here, and
Like early on, you didn't understand the weight of what that responsibility would be. Is that what you mean?
it could kind of, in a sense, yeah. I mean, that there was a, I just hadn't really, I hadn't, it was very experiential. I hadn't experienced it. If you'd asked me logically to, if you said, hey, do you have a lot of responsibility in this process? Well, sure. But experiencing it was different. Yeah, the weight of that. And I kind of welcomed it. It wasn't like I said, oh man, I can't do this. It was more of, okay, yeah, this is what real feels like. Okay. This is what being a
Yeah,
real
there's your giving back.
therapist, yeah, yeah, feels like, is being there for this person. Um,
Fascinating. Um, so then my next question would be around like what I want to ask what are the problems that people would bring you, but that probably runs the gamut.
mhm.
Um, well, yeah, let's go with that. Like people
Okay.
that would come to you with like financial duress.
Um, well, one of the things to note here in within financial therapy really is for mental health practitioners is that this is private pay. Insurance will not cover financial therapy. It's not
Ah,
a diagnostic category.
right.
And so that self-selects for people that are generally not in deep financial straits. Although I have seen some
Yeah.
people who um, are really struggling, and I am part of something called the Open Path Therapy Collective, which is a organization. It's basically a directory of therapists who have said, I'll take a sliding scale. Here, I'm here because there are people out there that can't afford, don't have the right insurance, don't have enough money, so we're going to do this at a
Yeah.
reduced cost. But in terms of the range, boy, it's everything from people that are retiring and in good financial shape, but struggling with the whole retirement process, because that's kind of part of my value proposition is not just financial therapy, but kind of retirement counseling, which I view as inextricably linked to finances.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I have a lot of experience around Social Security and Medicare and all those sorts of things. So there's that piece. There are people. I will tell you the sweet spot right now for me are men in their 50s, and I
Okay.
have I have men in their 50s who have plenty of money, but not much happiness,
No
and
fulfillment.
yeah, and men in their 50s who are really trying to figure out the whole planning for retirement piece. So I kind of view myself as a gateway to retirement planning, that the one of the barriers to the kind of professional retirement planning process are emotions. I mean, 80% of our decisions around money are based on emotion, not logic. And so you can go and talk to the greatest financial planner in the world and get the greatest plan. And I can tell you, financial planners see this all the time. Hey, here's your plan. This is going to be great. And the client gets the plan and they look at it and they set it in a desk drawer, and they don't ever implement anything
Yeah, and that's
because
it. Yeah.
they have not addressed all of the emotional issues, a lot of which are around. Maybe it's a scarcity mentality. Maybe it's some shame that they haven't made enough money, or maybe it's shame that they've made too much money.
Yeah.
Maybe it is just fear that they don't know, they don't want to make decisions, and this is going to put them into a decision-making process that they want no parts of. There's just a whole raft of issues that can come up.
I was hoping you were going to give us like a really good story about people coming to you in an emergency. But so who benefits from financial therapy? Like, how would someone know they need it?
Well, the real clue, I think, is just a chronic level of anxiety or depression around your thoughts about what you should be doing with your money. Maybe it's, saving or overspending, but your thoughts about what you should be doing with your money and your inability to operationalize those thoughts, right? It's like any, we have relationships with all sorts of things in our lives. If you look at what are my thoughts, feelings, and actions around this object, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if I am waking up in the morning and saying, today I'm going to stay off of Amazon, I'm not buying anything, and by the afternoon I'm on Amazon and I've just spent, maybe it's only $20, it's kind of like cigarettes, right? Something like that, some addictive behavior, or the opposite could be from a I'm going to save this week. I'm going to put together a savings plan. I've got enough money so that I can start saving. I just got a raise. I'm going to put together a savings plan, and then at the end of the week, it's all gone. And if you keep going through those kinds of cycles, and it can really be much broader than that, of just some part of money in your life where it feels like it's just a hot stove, okay? Then
Yeah.
financial therapy can be helpful. I work with a lot of couples, and that's a real, that can be a real issue, because now you're talking about two people coming into a relationship where they could have very different backgrounds around money. A lot of this we
Sure.
see is really influenced by what was your household like growing up? What's the first thing you learned about money? How did your parents talk about money? Did they always argue about it? You know, what does that look like, and how does that inform your own thinking?
Yeah. Now there's always, like, you can always find like a personality test or anything online for all these different personality types. Is there a test that someone could take that around money
Sure.
someplace? Like,
Yeah. There are a number of different tests online that are. There's one called Money Habitudes. I can't
okay.
rattle them off, but there are several that basically they are looking. They will tell you, um, give you a sense of here's the category we would put you in around
Mhm.
your relationship with money, and they could have 5 or 6 categories. I just did a kind of an inventory that was quite. It probably took me an hour or so to do it. That was all around money. Asking all kinds of questions around money. Being everything from like, okay, when you're out to dinner, do you always insist on picking up the tab,
Yeah.
or when your partner wants to make a purchase, a significant purchase, is it something that you guys discuss carefully and plan it out, or do you just do it impulsively? Just on and on, different questions like that. Um,
Yeah.
and the whole point of financial therapy is really, as therapists in the mental health world, that the mental health community has never really recognized money as a thing. They've talked about food, they talk about sex, they talk about, drug and alcohol addiction, the list goes on and on and on, but nobody has ever really looked at just this whole issue of how does money fit into our emotional well-being. It's always just been like either you have enough money or you don't. If you don't have enough money, we need
Right.
to
Yeah.
figure out some ways for you to, get a better job or get some
Right.
services or whatever.
How do you get more of it?
Yeah, and there's way more to it than that. Um, and honestly, the Financial Therapy Association's been around since 2009, but it's really started to get some traction, I would say, in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And how do folks find you if they're interested in chatting about this?
Sure. So I'm at John at financial-therapy.me. You can also find me and other financial therapists at the Financial Therapy Association. That's financialtherapyassociation.org, and there's a directory there with over 100 financial therapists in it. And then I have a website that's financial therapy, financial-therapy.me.
Okay. Um, yeah, it's a fascinating topic because, like I spoke about earlier with how your household was at your impressionable age is how you deal with money now. A lot of folks, like you mentioned, guilt associated with earning too
Yeah.
much money. Folks associate money with greed or a negative thing, and some folks associate it with scarcity, so they hang on to every little bit of it. It's very interesting.
It's
Um,
just to add one piece to that I was surprised to uncover, but I shouldn't have been because it's existed in my life, is you'd be surprised at how many people, when you talk about scarcity, how much of that comes from grandparents and even great grandparents in the Great Depression.
yeah, save it for a
It's
rainy day. Like, what
yeah,
does that even mean?
yeah, still filtering through here, 100 years later.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when we don't save enough, we associate guilt on that side of it too. Um, Early on in my business, I was meeting with a group of peers, and one of the guys, he was probably at the time I was 25, 26, I think. And this guy was probably mid 40s, nah, early 40s, late 30s. And we were just talking about money and profit and what you do with the profit and all these things. He said, I just keep working really hard, and until I have $1 million in the bank and everything's paid for, and I've got $1 million in cash sitting there, I just won't feel comfortable. And when I get $1 million, I'll be good. And so I think we're like 5 years later, 6 years later, he had his $1 million, and when I get 2 million, when I get 2 million in the bank, I'll feel good.
Do you think
It's just
that's true? That's what he was
well,
saying. That's what he said
that's what
five
he
or
was
six.
saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what he was
yeah,
saying. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I,
and
I
that's
was
where he
just
was headed. He got his million, and it is the what's it called, the hedonic treadmill,
yeah.
where you just keep chasing, keep running, keep rolling, whatever it is. You just keep moving, keep moving,
Yeah.
keep moving, and it's never enough. And I guess that's that scarcity mindset. Like someone's going to come take it all away.
Well, I think it could actually be a lot of things. It could just be that he's just got this deeply misguided value that money equals happiness.
Well, let's
And
talk about that for just a second.
sure.
So I understand the part about money equaling happiness, but how could we say it's a misguided value? I don't agree with the value,
Mhm.
but how do we call it misguided? Because it's his value.
Well, I think that so the work that I do is based a lot on something called acceptance and commitment therapy. And
Okay.
values is one of the big pillars of that, is that one of your tasks is to help your client to understand what their values really are.
So
And
there's probably an exercise you can go through, just like core values for a business.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And it is it can be pretty painful in the sense, like for that guy, of like, okay, you're chasing this $1 million. What's driving that? Tell me more about that. Tell me why. Keep telling me why. Okay, you're doing it. Why? What do you expect to get from it? And I think when you bore down on that, that is a value that he's holding, right? That he's going to find happiness with this $1 million. And I call it misguided because when you decompose it, you discover, as he's discovered already, when you decompose that, you find out that it's probably not true. That when you get that $1 million, unless you really understand what's going to make you happy, okay, is that, and you could use that $1 million in, that is taking buying an RV and taking a trip across the country. Is that really, that's really going to make you happy? Well, that's a good use of $1 million. But just the $1 million, happiness, $1 million, maybe security, you've got to really think those things through. But to me, aligning all of this effort with your values is absolutely key in the whole process.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's a fascinating piece of it, right? Because everybody wants the big fancy house when really what they want is the feeling they think it's going to bring them. You want the fancy car, or really you want the feeling you think it's going to bring you.
Yeah. And a lot of that, and I think this is one of the real paradoxes of money in our society, that we don't want to talk about money, but we want to do all these things that are so outwardly visible. I want the big house really because I want my neighbors to think I'm rich. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I want
Yep.
that feeling of people are looking up to me. I want to drive the fancy car for the same reason.
That's right. Yep. And it's funny. So I'll get a little vulnerable here, or a little whatever you want to call it. I recently, over the last year, have made a conscious effort not to look at the kind of car people drive.
Mm.
So like if I meet someone out for coffee and we're leaving, I go way out of my way to not see what kind of vehicle they have. Sitting in traffic, if I look over to the next person, I make a conscious effort not to look down and see what kind of car they're in. I've found that that's how we associate
Yeah.
Their hierarchy or their performance, or where they sit in the social structure. And it's so interesting. And money is such a difficult conversation. We don't want to talk about it, but we certainly want to show it, just like you just said.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
that's a fascinating kind of effort on your part.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so foolish. It feels absolutely childish. But I realized I would look at people's cars. I was like, what in the fuck am I doing? Who cares? Who cares what they're driving? It doesn't even matter. And
Yeah,
then I said,
yeah,
okay, well, I'm going to make a conscious effort, just fight the effort to look at it.
yeah, yeah. We're so
Um,
attuned to that, judging people by
that's
the
it.
trappings they've surrounded themselves with.
Yeah. And that's oftentimes that's what that is, the trappings that they've acquired to build their social status. And then, it's our measuring stick, how well
Yeah,
they're doing. It's like even in so you're a business owner, I'm sure you relate to this. Even to get into a lot of these like entrepreneurs organization or young professionals organization, any of these uh, businesses geared around entrepreneurs, it's all about your top line sales or top line revenue. They never talk about profit. They never talk about
mm.
what you keep. You got to do a minimum this in your sales annually. Well, anyone can easily do that. You just give away a product,
Yeah.
sell it for 50% of what it's actually worth. So, John, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you. And one more time, what's your website if someone wants to find you?
It's a www.financial-therapy.me.
Awesome. All right. And are you on any social?
Yeah, yeah. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a Facebook uh,
Okay.
site, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. And just find you just search John Hankins on any of
Yeah.
those.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you carving out some time for us. And again, this is All Can, No Can't podcast, where we take obstacles and turn those into opportunities. So when you are faced with can't, it's up to you to find the can. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you.
Thanks for listening to All Can, No Can't. If today's episode resonated with you, remember it's not about the chaos you face. It's about how you choose to take back control. It's about finding that one small can in the can't you're given and grinding it down. Find your angle, carve your place out in the world, and get the fucking win. Do that by finding what you can do and not listening to what you can't. You choose. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps me reach more people that are ready to embrace the all-can mindset. And it lets them know there's someone that's willing to walk with them no matter how dark the path gets. You can find me on Insta at JDLuther 2.0 and allcan_no-can't. This is where I share more tips, stories, inspiration to help fuel your journey. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries, breaking limits, proving to yourself that anything is possible, even when you're told it isn't. Remember, life's not about can't. It's all can. Go prove them wrong.